Okay, this is activity ST50, and it involves creating an assembly made of several parts and applying the proper constraints. So here, as in most problems in Catia, there are many different ways of doing this thing. One is to make one frame, one axle, and one wheel. And then after you save that, you can insert existing components, and the existing component will be an axle and a wheel three more times. That's one option. The other one is to create these three parts and then use the fast uh, instantiation or multi-instantiation. That's the other option. I will go the first route. Okay. So let me start with the product file and immediately save this thing. So we go, since the dimensions are not uh, are not given here, and you can use your own dimensions. I'm going to maximize this so that I don't need to see the figure on the left. So immediately save it, file, save management, save as. In my desktop, I create a folder called activity ST50. Okay, so everything for this activity, okay, so let me give it a different name. Let me try it again. Rename this thing. I'll call it new activity ST50. Okay, so everything is going to go there. Let me insert my first part. Insert new part in there, and I'm going to call this thing the frame properties. Excuse me. This is the instance name. And this is the part name. Say okay. Double click on the frame so that you go into the part design and start building it. So on that vertical plane, I will sketch a rectangle. This is going to be the cross section of the frame. And then I'm going to draw a circle here. And let's see now. What's the dimension of this? I'll make this thing 0.5. 0.5. And another one on this side, also dimension diameter 0.5. All right, exit, add it. And notice that to minimize my work, I'm going to do a mirror extend so that there is a plane of symmetry here right in the middle. Okay, so I'll make this thing 1. So it's going to go 1 in each direction, so total width of 2. All right, all the way to the top, all the way to the top, click on the floppy, and that will save this thing in that folder. And then I'm going to go insert a new, cancel that, insert new part in there, say no, and I'm going to call this thing axle, properties, axle. This is the instance name, and here is the part name, axle. We make it now. Double click on the axle so that we go into the part design. Now, on the same vertical plane, namely on the, once again, this is to make my job easier. Remember, this one, I drew it on in the YZ plane. I do exactly the same thing here. But of course, this YZ plane is different from that YZ plane because one of them is for the frame, the other one is for the axle. So I'm going to sketch on it a circle, There we are. Diameter 0.5, so that it fits snugly inside of that hole. Exit. And remember, this was 2, so I'm going to pad this thing by mirror extend. Very important. This is 2, so I'll make it 3. So 1.5 in each direction. Okay. Now, all the way to the top, click on the floppy. Let's save the axle too. Okay. Now let's do the wheels. Insert, new part. Call this thing the wheel. Say okay. Double click on the wheel so that you go into part design and start making it. So on that same wiser plane. Now, you know what? This time, to make it a little bit harder, I don't know why I would do that, but anyway, wiser plane. On the XY plane, I will sketch. I'll draw a circle, diameter 0.5. That's the inner hole of that wheel, 0.5. And then another circle, that's the extremity of the wheel, outer part of the rim. And that, just leave it the way it is. Exit and pad it. It doesn't have to be symmetric. It's not going to make my job easier or harder. So I'll make it 0.3. Definitely made it symmetric here. Mirror extend would make my job easier. You go all the way to the top, click on the floppy, and we say OK. Now, in that folder, excuse me, in that folder, there is a product and 3 parts: frame, axle, and wheel. Now, I need 3 more wheels and 1 more axle. So the way instead of doing copy and paste and doing this thing 4 times, I'm going to say insert existing component. See that? Not new part, existing component. It took me to, this is not the right one, so we call something new activity right here. So I'm going to use the wheel, for example, and I have to do this thing 3 times. This is why multi-instantiation works a lot faster, but that's okay. I just do it. Now the other wheel is here, sitting on top of that. As a matter of fact, you can see that there was the original wheel, and here's another one. And do it again. Insert existing component in there. Wheel. This is the second. This is the third one. Third wheel. And one more time. Insert existing component in there. Wheel. This is the fourth one. They're sitting on top of each other. And to convince you, I can use the move toolbar, and there is manipulate here. And I'm going to translate this thing in the vertical direction. They're sitting on top of each other. Here's actually, let me go in the direction Z. Here's one. Here's another one. And here's another one. We say okay. And to make my job easier, by the way, I'm going to move these things to the right so that I can see what's going on here. So I'm going to translate these things to the right so that their coordinate system is not blocking my view here. Okay, good. Now I have to insert another existing component. That's this axle. So insert existing component in there, and it's the axle. Fine, and they're sitting on top of each other. To convince you, let me move things apart. So I'm going to move this thing in the X direction. Here's one. Here's the other one. We say okay. All right. So now, let me quickly save everything. Now we have to assemble things. The first thing that we're going to do is use the anchor in the constraints toolbar to fix the frame so that everything else moves but the frame. So here's, click on the anchor, select this, and notice there's an anchor sign there, and in your tree, there is a fixed frame. Good. Now let's place this axle inside of that, and it doesn't matter which one you select. whether the first axle or second axle, it doesn't matter. So coincidence between the axis of this axle and that axle and that pole basically, and coincidence between the vertical plane of this guy and the vertical plane of the frame. And because it's symmetric, when I say update, it'll jump into there symmetrically and do the same thing with the other one. Coincidence between this axis and this axis, and coincidence between this frame of the axle, plane of the axle, and this is the plane of the frame, I believe. Yeah, that must be it. Yeah, from the frame. Say okay. And if I update, this is going to go in there. Now, that's the reason I separated these so that otherwise I have to go to the tree to see which one I've picked, which plane I've picked. Now, let's go to the wheels. For example, coincidence between the axis of this wheel and the axis of this axle, and coincidence between this plane and that plane. Say OK and update. There we are. Notice that every time you create a constraint, they appear in the tree. And another one, axis of this and the axis of that guy, and coincidence between this plane and that plane. Update. The other two, coincidence between this axis and that axis, and coincidence between this plane and that plane, and update. And if you make a mistake, you always go delete that constraint or fix it. Coincidence between this axis and that axis, and coincidence between this plane and that plane, and update. So how do I know if the assembly constraints are good? If I move these things, separate them from each other, and update, they should go back to the proper position. For example, let me translate this thing in the Z direction, maybe X direction or Y direction. X is like that. Okay, good. And let's also do a crazy rotation to any one of these. Like this one is like so, like so. Now, if I update, there's another rotation. If I update, they should go back to the original position. And they do. The other way to check this out is using explode. Here's the explode icon. You click on it. It says, first of all, what levels you want to basically do the explosion. It's at 3D level. The product is, of course, this is the product. You might say, well, why does it say product? There's only one, but they may have sub-product that you may want to explode, but I don't have it. Everything is a single product. And fixed point, the one that's going to stay fixed. So let's make this point fixed. Everything is going to be exploding with respect to that. Did I pick? Actually, I don't want a frame. I want a point. Okay. Oh, fixed product. Which product do you want to be not point? Sorry. Which product you want to be fixed? Well, actually, you know what? Let me. We'll do it again. Okay. So we say apply, update. You're about to modify. Okay, no problem. And there we are. And if I update now, they're going to go back to where they are. And I could have exploded it by keeping something else fixed. For example, you can select uh, this wheel fixed and then say OK. And there we go. This state fixed everything else, exploded with respect to it. Exploded means uh, gone out radially or something like that. When I update, if I have properly assembly constraint, they're going to go back to the original configuration. All right, folks. So good luck.